Hello and welcome into the first ever 20 Questions with Tony, featuring our good friend Marc Cox.
Glad I could be your guinea pig.
You are. This is the test run. If this is good, we'll do more. If it's not, we'll just forget it ever happened.
So this is kind of rapid fire. 20 questions.
20 questions.
Quick answers. We're moving on.
So most of these questions were submitted by listeners. As you know, we asked people on Twitter and on the air. I had people tweet me in some questions. I had some questions emailed to me. We asked all the listeners out there, if you ever wanted to ask Marc Cox a question, if you could get an answer to any question you've ever wanted to ask, serious, goofy, funny, doesn't matter, send them in, and they didn't disappoint.
Do I get like a pass or a call a friend or anything like that?
You can plead the fifth. It is your right to plead the fifth.
All right.
So, and I will say that for people that are counting along the questions, I reserve the right to ask a follow-up or an add-on on one of the 20 questions, so it might end up being a few more than 20 questions, but it's my rules, my game, my rules.
All right.
So here we go. Thanks to everybody who submitted questions, and hopefully we get to everybody's. First question was definitely the one sent in the most. It's good. These are all good.
I hear you.
You've established yourself as one of the top radio hosts in St. Louis over the last few years, but before that, you had a long, successful career in television news. Which one do you like better?
Which opportunity? Which career?
Yeah. Which do you prefer, radio or television?
I'll preface this by saying that I got to do things as a television reporter that just not everybody gets to do. So I was blessed to get to do that for 25 years. But so far, I've enjoyed this radio career more just because of the freedom that it allows me to report what I believe is the truth, to cut through the political correct BS that you have to go through sometimes. And I'm my own producer. So on my show, I talk about things that are important to me. For so many years in television, particularly as an anchor, you're given scripts by producers to talk about stuff like who's marrying the Prince of England and things that I just have no interest in.
Right.
And now I have the freedom to not talk about those things if I don't want to. So the short answer is radio has been great so far. And I hope I can do it for a long time.
What is your biggest surprise about doing radio over television? What was the biggest thing that you didn't expect when you made the transition over to radio? Well,
the ratings have been good, and I guess I didn't really know what to expect, to be quite honest with you, right? What we've developed is an audience that appreciates the way we put the show together and the subjects we cover and the fact that we take phone calls. And you know, I was kind of coming at this as a rookie, and I did the weekend show for 6 years roughly before I got this opportunity. So it wasn't like I'd done no radio, but you're never quite sure how a primetime Monday through Friday show is going to go over. And I've just been blown away by the results. It's been great.
How old were you when you knew you wanted to work in news or be a part of the media? And was there a moment, maybe in your childhood or in high school or something, that pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, probably in hindsight, earlier than I imagined, because I can remember in high school writing letters to the editor at my local newspaper and having a strong opinion about things, because I've been a conservative for as long as I can remember. And I remember
as a wee lad?
Well, from pretty early on, yeah. From my first memories of having an opinion on politics. And I can remember my father, kind of discouraging me a little bit now that I think about it from doing it. Like, why do you think people care about your opinion? And I'm like, because they need to change theirs, right? I felt like that.
Because I can help them.
So maybe I didn't realize early on what I was destined to do for a living, but it wasn't really until I got to college that I made a decision to go into journalism. So I can't say that in 5th grade I knew what I was going to do.
Right.
But clearly looking back on it, I was headed in that direction earlier than I realized.
Yeah. What's the biggest story you've ever covered?
Probably the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
I would think. I mean, I covered the OJ.
Were you there?
I wasn't there when the bomb happened, but I was the first St. Louis reporter to land there for coverage afterwards. We were the first ones to get reports on the air after it happened, and we stayed there for 3 days. So that was probably the biggest story that I can think of covering. I covered the O.J. Simpson verdict and things like that, but it was that was big.
All right, we're going to force you to brag a little bit here.
No.
If you had to pick a moment or story from your career to show a possible employer, say you're, giving somebody a tape to say, here, this is why you should hire me. If you were going to pick a story from your career to show an employer how good you were, what would you pick? In other words, does anything stand out as an example of when you were at your best? It could be radio or television. He doesn't like to brag, folks.
No, I don't know. It was 25 years that I did that, so it's kind of hard to narrow that down.
Right. Can you think of a moment where you ever walked away going, man, we
nailed it, like the Oklahoma City coverage, I thought. Yeah. We nailed, because it's just you and a photographer, and you've got a limited amount of time to relay that information. Things that stand out, getting to go to D.C. and cover like Stan Musial's Medal of Freedom Award.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were one of the last TV interviews that Stan ever did. I remember that in the lobby of the hotel right across from the White House.
That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, those and there are probably half a dozen other stories. I think.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on the air? Besides this interview,
I was anchoring the morning news in Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh yes,
and we had a lady who.
All good stories start with I was anchoring the news in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, we had a lady who was coming on to talk about incontinence. Because I told you don't always, as an anchor, you don't get to control what your subjects are. So there was a lady who was traveling around trying to draw attention to the problem of female incontinence. Newsroom is a rough environment. All morning before she got there, we've been joking about, how do you feel about that? Depends, jokes like that. So when she got there, of course, I had to be serious about it.
Right.
And she's sitting next to me on the set, and I read the intro, and I'm like, today we're here to talk about an important issue for a lot of people. And, Jane Smith is joining us. She's from the Association to Prevent Incompetence. Incompetence is the word that comes out of my mouth. And the woman had zero humor about it. She didn't just laugh it off and say, oh, people make that mistake all the time. No. She just stared at me.
When they don't help,
you kind of had to apologize on the air, and that was probably one of the more embarrassing moments I can think of. Yeah,
that's pretty good. Some people may not know, this is a getting to know you segment also, that you were also a financial advisor for a period of time, and you were an elected official. Tell us a little bit about your life in those two areas and why you pursued those occupations as well.
Yeah, well, be a little careful here. Okay. I decided in 2012 that I was going to change
Nobody's going to watch this, so you can say
well, I decided in 2012, after 25 years in television, that I needed to get out of the situation I was in at Channel 4 for a variety of reasons. It wasn't them pushing me out. I could have stayed there if I wanted to. But we were longtime St. Louis residents. I didn't want to uproot the family halfway across the country. Had kids in high school. All the family lives here in St. Louis. I didn't want to leave, quite frankly. And simply walking across town to Channel 2 or Channel 5 is not as easy as it sounds. Even if they want to hire you, there are contracts in place, there are non-competes, all that. So I started looking at what else I could do. I was approached by somebody from Edward Jones who said, this is a people business, you know people. You deal good with people, you should try this. So I did it. It was tough. I had to get a Series 7 license, which is something like the bar exam. I had to study for that and pass it. I had to build my own business, which I was doing successfully. Still doing some radio on the side.
Yeah, doing this.
And then this opportunity came along, right? In the middle of all that somewhere, I decided to run for office because I wasn't busy enough. I believe you should do something to get back to your community. I've always sort of regretted I was in ROTC in college. I came up to the point where I had to make a decision if I was going to commit or not, and I backed out at the last minute because I knew I wanted to be a television reporter, and I didn't want to have to delay that by a 3 or 4 year commitment to the military before I started working, so I decided not to do it. I've always regretted that in a sense that I didn't get that experience. So to me, running for office was just a way of trying to give back to the community a little bit.
Gotcha.
So
has it been all you thought it was going to be?
It's been eye-opening. I mean, you feel like you've done some good things.
Right.
You like to think you've done some good things, but I would encourage everybody to get involved somehow, just so you know how the sausage is made, quite frankly.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted to know, what is Marc Cox's greatest fear?
That answer's probably changed some over the years.
Yeah.
Now I would say with as serious, because you know I'm kind of a serious guy, as serious as I see the problems facing the world and the direction this country could go the next 20 or 30 years, my greatest fear is having to look in the eyes of my grandchildren one of these days and say, I stood by and let that happen. As opposed to standing up and fighting for what I believe in and trying to change people's opinions on things to the way I view the world. And that's my greatest fear. But quite frankly, I could joke and say my greatest fear would have been if Hillary Clinton had actually gotten elected.
Right. Well, there is an Earth too.
But if that had happened,
right,
I would not have been curled up in the corner with a coloring book. That's the difference, right, between conservatives and liberals, in my opinion. But short answer, that's my biggest fear. Yeah.
Have you ever considered, or would you ever consider, running for a national office like Congress or Senate?
I don't know. I've entertained the thought in the past.
You want to make an announcement right here?
No,
nobody's watching.
I have entertained the thought in the past, but there are always barriers to that decision, right? So when I was a television reporter, you can't be a television reporter and a Senate candidate or a congressional candidate. You can't do that. It's simply because there's the fairness issues and the equal time issues and all that stuff. So the TV station wouldn't let you do that.
Right.
And then if you're running for Congress and you have no other source of income, how do you pay your mortgage?
Right.
So there are a lot of barriers to just simply dropping what you're doing and running for office. And that's probably prevented me from going down that path a couple of times when I considered it. So I would never rule it out, but it's a difficult thing to undertake if you can't also make a living at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
I will donate to your campaign if you run.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't know if it'll cover your mortgage.
Yeah, well,
I will
whatever you can do to help.
If you could change one law or regulation in this country, what would it be?
Probably abortion.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Overturn Roe v. Wade?
Probably.
Yeah.
Or let me put it this way. I think Roe v. Wade was an overreach by the federal government. I think that's a decision that should be made at the state level. And if you live in a state that allows it and you don't like it, move to a state that doesn't. And I think we live in the state of Missouri where it wouldn't be allowed, but in Illinois it probably would. So I think that it's a very personal decision. I agree, but I believe that it's taking of a life, and I think that it should be a state-by-state decision, and I think the Supreme Court created a right where there wasn't one. So, yes.
What are your favorite hobbies?
I used to collect antique radios, but I got so many of them that my wife put a stop on that. She said, we've got too many of these. We've got nowhere to display them.
Right.
We probably got enough. So I finally had to admit that. So then I started. I like to collect weapons. You know, I had an antique weapons license at one point.
Oh, that's cool.
So you could go out and buy weapons that, you know, are black powder weapons or old Civil War weapons, things like that. I don't have a lot of them, but I bought those on and off through the year. I'm fascinated by that. But again, you reach a point where it can get out of control.
Right.
You always got to keep an eye on that. And I enjoy going bird hunting and shooting and things like that.
What's the oldest one you have? The oldest weapon you have?
Now it's probably a 1925
That's cool.
Colt 45 civilian model, I would guess.
All right, this is question 11, so we're halfway home.
Oh, good, good.
Right?
All right.
So we're getting there. Nothing hurts.
This is going to be long.
Not so bad, right?
No.
One more time, we're going to force you to brag. Tell us something that we probably don't know about you that you've done or won. Something that you're proud of but never talk about. This can be personal or professional. As an example, I know that you have won multiple Emmy Awards, and you have some of those on the mantle at home. What else is on that mantle?
But people know about that. I don't know if I've won. I don't know if I've got a good answer for that. Quite frankly, I don't know if there's something that I've won or done that people.
The Emmy Awards are pretty cool.
Don't know about that.
Right?
Pretty cool. Yeah.
That had to feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're judged by your peers. You put your work out there. You're judged by your peers on whether it's the best or not. So that's always nice. So professionally, I don't know if I've got something out there that really signifies that. What I will say that I'm proud about, though, is that if you are recognized by your peers, it makes you feel good. So in both my work as a television reporter, I got to enjoy that. When I was briefly a financial advisor, I got some awards because I met their requirements for excellence. And since I've been in radio, you apply for those MBA awards, you get honorable mentions, things like that. It makes you feel good.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, this one might be difficult. Argue against your standard point of view. Give me one belief that you have that is more liberal than the typical Republican. In other words, an area that you might actually agree with Democrats on. Is there anything? Anything that you disagree with the standard Republican point of view on? I told you it's going to be hard.
I don't know.
I the hardest ever here.
I don't know. The only thing that I waffle on a little bit, and it's an issue that's been decided at the federal level, is the whole gay marriage issue, right? Most people consider that law now, because the Supreme Court's ruled on it. Again, I view it as more of a states' rights issue. I don't think the word marriage is anywhere in the Constitution, and I don't think the government has much ground to stand on in terms of regulating it. And therefore, I think it's something that should be decided on a state-by-state basis and not forced down the throats of everyone. So I don't know if that varies from standard Republican view on it or not.
Right.
Quite frankly, you can do what you want to do behind closed doors. You can answer to your maker at some point about whatever that is.
Yeah.
Whether it's smoking dope or whatever it is that
right.
I might not choose to do. You have to make that decision. But I still think I would still support that on a state-by-state basis more than anything.
I think state-by-state, states' rights, to me,
been trampled.
Always a good,
but
it's always the way to go. They have been.
Right.
It's always the way to go. What are the best and worst traits of President Trump?
Oh, the worst is probably what makes him appeal to his supporters the most, and that's the fact that he's real. He gets carried away on Twitter sometimes. He makes some issues entirely too personal when they don't need to be and cause problems. So that's the worst. The best is he's gotten into office and done exactly what we told people he would do. And the left can't see through their hatred of him as an entertainer or whatever. That's the Donald Trump they see. They used to love him when he donated money to the NAACP. Now they hate him. I mean, there's all these things they found a reason to dislike him on. But you know what? He's in Davos, Switzerland right now, celebrating a booming economy. Today, the International Investment Fund guy over there, the IAF president, admitted that Donald Trump has added rocket fuel to the economy in the United States. He's reduced regulations. Businesses are booming. He's doing what I want him to do on immigration. I just think that the good far outweighs the bad, and a lot of what the bad is in terms of the left are accusations that they've yet to prove one iota of. So that's my take on it.
Somebody asked if you could add another president to Mount Rushmore, who would it be? But that's too easy, because I know you're going to say Reagan. So I'm changing their question, and I'm saying if you could add another president to Mount Rushmore whose name is not Ronald Reagan, who would it be?
Wow.
Yeah. That took the easy one away. For those that don't know, he has a portrait of Ronald Reagan in his office.
Yeah, that's see, I
looking back, is there another president that you really thought did a great job or helped the country?
Who didn't get
Who's not already on Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, well,
You can't say Lincoln.
You can't say Lincoln. I'm going to take a pass on that one.
All right.
I am.
That's all right.
I don't know.
That's
Reagan
all right.
would have been my go-to, and
I know.
I think that's a
all right, I'll let
place
you,
of distinction.
I'll let you answer, Rachel. I'll let you answer.
All right,
Rachel.
sorry.
This is 15th question, so we're in the home stretch here. Give us 3 to 5 musicians or bands that you can't live without.
Oh. 3 to 5?
3 to 5 musicians or bands that you can't live without.
Well, everybody knows my my love of Sammy Hagar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Love that music. Led Zeppelin, love Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
Can't help it. Back to the Sammy Hagar thing for a minute. Van Halen, both
Mm-hmm.
Hagar and the original Van Halen.
Which do you prefer,
lineup.
Van Halen or Van Hagar?
I'm
Or
equal.
yeah.
I'm an equal lover of both of their music. I'll just have to say. So that's 3. And you know, outside of that, oddly enough, I'm a huge Frank Sinatra fan.
Yeah.
I love listening to Sinatra.
I do
Music
too.
like that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to throw him in the mix there somewhere. Loved Elvis.
There's nothing wrong with
Have
that.
to throw Elvis in the mix there somewhere.
That's great.
So yeah.
Speaking of music, I know that you got to host a shift on our sister station, KC95, once. Somebody asked, do you think KC will ever be recognized at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland? And would you help an effort to make that happen?
Sure, I would. In fact, I think there was an effort, a year and a half ago or so. Learn was kind of pushing that a little bit.
Well, we found out that there are radio stations recognized in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
but not the one that's been on the air longest and most continuously.
Yeah.
Since what, 67?
The oldest
right?
classic rock station in the country.
It's a travesty, and of course I would do that. I think there shouldn't be a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if KC's not in it. It's like I don't think there should be a baseball Hall of Fame if Pete Rose isn't in it. The roof should collapse on it. How could you have that, right?
Right.
Come on.
Back to the 3 to 5 things. Instead of musicians, food. 3 to 5 foods that you can't live without.
Well, my wife will not like my answers on this, but the simple one is pizza, because I don't think I've ever had a bad pizza unless it's got an ingredient on it that I don't like.
Right.
I'll even eat the cardboard stuff that they sell at the grocery store. I love pizza. Steak would have to be way up there somewhere. Cheese bread.
Nice.
I assume my wife created that because when I first was dating her, she made it for me one day.
Yeah.
And then she told me it's this big thing back in St. Louis because we didn't live here at the time. So that would be somewhere up there, probably boneless chicken wings.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's all good stuff.
I'm a simple guy when it comes to food.
It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, Donald Trump, Mike Pence, and yourself are not options. If you had the power to appoint the next president, who would it be? Who out there do you think would make a great president, besides Pence, Trump, and you?
The person who I probably agree most on the vast majority of issues would be Ted Cruz.
Mm-hmm. Who you initially supported?
Yeah,
right?
I supported him during the primary.
Mm-hmm.
So if it had to be today and I was making that decision, that's probably who it would be.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, only a couple questions left. We're almost done. This is going to be a quick, rapid-fire round. I'm going to say a name. You tell me 15 seconds or less what you think of them.
Okay.
All right? Ronald Reagan.
To date, greatest president of my lifetime. My earliest political memories were probably formed because I was in college when he was running for re-election. I was in high school when he was first elected. Just transformed this country and made the world again recognize that we're the greatest country in the world.
Bernie Sanders.
Socialist. Truly fails to grasp what makes this country great and sets us apart from the rest of the world, and refuses to acknowledge that his ideas are a direct path to bankruptcy.
Jeff Sessions.
Disappointed with what he's done as Attorney General so far.
This is two people. We're going to combine them into one two-headed monster. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
Again, two political monsters, is your word, who have combined to do everything they can to stop common sense things like tax reform and giving people good health care. I can't understand even where they start to come from. I can't wrap my brain around it.
Marc Cox Show executive producer Liz Koch.
Yes?
15 seconds or less.
Oh, great. Can answer any question for you about the World Wrestling Federation, I think. Talks to you
World
about
Wrestling Entertainment now.
Oh,
Federation.
WWE. I'm sorry. I love Liz. She's a bright spot in my day every day, and she's got a great sense of humor, and she always is the cup half full for me. So that's what I need, that input from her every day.
Marc Cox Show associate producer Frank Ladd.
Frank is puts his nose to the grindstone every day, busts his butt to turn around things like last-minute press briefings by Sarah Sanders so I can get them on the air minutes later. I mean, he really is good at what he does, answering the phones back there and kind of taking care of the things, the Facebook posts and things that you don't really hear on the air a lot.
Our boss, 97.1 program director Jeff Allen.
Genius. Because look what he created, the Marc Cox Show.
Yeah, right.
The Almond in the Morning, the Glover Show. I mean, he's the brains behind the operation, and his capping achievement most recently was the Weekend Report with Tony Colombo and Chris Arps and Katie Bailey. Yeah,
love it. Yeah. I completely agree. All right, this is it. Question number 20. We made it.
Oh, no.
Final question. Start to finish, what does Marc Cox's perfect day look like? What are you doing in the morning? What are you doing in the lunchtime, in the afternoon, evening?
My days are pretty routine through the week. I'm up about 6:30 every morning.
Make your perfect day. Like if you could do anything you wanted in a day, what would you like?
I would awake to a table filled with biscuits and gravy and sausage and eggs.
All right.
I'd eat until I couldn't eat anymore.
Now we're getting there.
I would go down to work on a highway that had zero traffic or idiots driving slow or changing lanes improperly. I would arrive at work only to find my entire show prep already done for me.
Yes.
And I could just have, like, Trump could put out a crazy tweet and I'd have my show done for the day. And then I could go home in the afternoon, have a cold beer of my choice out of a stuffed refrigerator, and the University of Kentucky would be playing on my television set.
Yes.
And that is the cap to a perfect day for me.
I had a University of Kentucky question that I didn't put on the list. I should have.
Winningest basketball program of all time.
That's
for
right.
all you Jayhawk fans out there to see.
All right, that's it. First 20 questions with Tony is in the books. See, I love these long form type interviews with people that I find interesting. It's my favorite thing to consume. So I'm thinking, hopefully, that the folks out there find us interesting and want to see these long-form interviews with us.
It's been fun, buddy.
So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being the very first one.
You bet.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. That's the first 20 questions with Tony. I'm Tony Colombo. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Mark.
You bet.